They say the Mafia disappeared. They say organized crime was buried in the 1980s with the big arrests, the RICO cases, the wiretaps, the Teflon Don. But what if I told you the mob didn't vanish, it evolved? Because in today's world, you don't need to carry a gun to hold power. You only need influence and the right connections. Welcome to the Mafia's involvement in modern politics, where corruption wears a suit and the handshake means more than a contract. Before we dive in, hit that subscribe button, because what you're about to learn will make you see modern politics differently. Once upon a time, the Mafia ran the streets. They controlled the docks, the construction sites, the unions. But as America evolved, so did the mob. By the late 19th century, the Mafia realized that violence drew too much heat. Bullets attract FBI agents, but campaign donations, they open doors. It started small, with favors. A union leader would encourage votes for a local candidate. A contractor with mob ties would fund a campaign in exchange for city contracts. Soon, these relationships weren't criminal, they were political capital. The mob didn't need to threaten politicians anymore. They simply became partners. Here's how it worked and still works today. Step 1. Money laundering through legitimate businesses. Step 2. Political donations from those businesses. Step 3. Influence over zoning, contracts, and appointments. The Mafia mastered what every lobbyist now does openly: buying access. Only difference: their methods were dirtier, their loyalties blood-bound. Throughout the 1970s and 80s, mob-linked figures funneled millions into campaigns across New York, Chicago, and Las Vegas. They backed mayors, councilmen, even judges. Some politicians didn't take money, they owed it. And those debts, they were collected, not in cash, but in silence. Take New York City, 1986. The commission trial had just dismantled the five families, but behind the headlines, mob money was still flowing into local construction unions. Those unions had deep political ties, funding city council candidates who promised to support workers, except those workers were controlled by the Gambino and Genovese families. The politicians didn't see the Mafia as criminals. They saw them as campaign infrastructure. Move to Chicago. Same playbook. Developers, contractors, and Teamsters bosses, many with quiet mob ties, bankrolled political careers. The outfit didn't just bribe, they built the city. They owned the concrete, the labor, and eventually the votes. Even Las Vegas, the glittering symbol of legitimate entertainment, had mob fingerprints on its legislation. The same families that built the casinos learned how to build influence. They went from backroom deals to boardrooms, and eventually to campaign fundraisers. By the 2000s, something changed. The old Italian-American mafia faded from the headlines, but its lessons, manipulation, silence, and loyalty, went global. In Russia, oligarchs learned to blend business with government. In Mexico, cartels learned to fund politicians instead of fighting them. And in Italy, the Sicilian Cosa Nostra quietly infiltrated local councils, winning contracts and votes. And in the United States, organized crime learned something powerful. They no longer needed the streets. They had the system. Modern mobsters use shell corporations, dark money pacts, and offshore accounts. They influence elections without a trace of gunpowder, just paperwork. The face of corruption became digital. So why does this system persist? Because the incentives never changed. Politicians want money. The mob wants power. And both operate best in the shadows. Federal investigations have exposed countless pay-to-play schemes, from local governments giving contracts to mob-linked companies to politicians quietly owning stakes in businesses connected to organized crime. And every time one scandal breaks, another grows in silence. The Mafia doesn't need to control the government. It just needs to own the people who run it. Today's version isn't about envelopes of cash and smoky restaurants. It's about consulting fees, offshore donations, and campaign bundlers. In 2019, the FBI revealed multiple cases of construction executives with mob ties donating to city officials. In 2021, investigations into waste management companies uncovered decades of quiet mob involvement. And some of the biggest infrastructure projects in the U.S., airports, tunnels, railways, still go through companies that were once under mob influence. You see, the Mafia never left construction. It just rebranded itself as logistics. And the politicians, they learned to look the other way, or worse, to benefit from it. This isn't just about money. It's about psychology, control through loyalty and fear. The mob's greatest invention wasn't extortion. It was dependence. If a politician owes you a favor, you don't need to threaten him. He'll protect you out of gratitude or guilt. That's the heart of corruption, not violence, but reciprocity, the silent understanding that power is shared among those who can keep a secret. It's the same code that built the Mafia, Omerta, but now it's written into politics. Today, the new mobsters don't meet in social clubs. They meet on encrypted apps, offshore servers, and cryptocurrency exchanges. Dark money now moves faster than ever. Political campaigns can receive millions in anonymous donations, perfectly legal. And where there's no trace, there's no crime. The Mafia of the 21st century isn't a crime family. It's a network. Part old money, part politics, part digital ghost. Some are businessmen, some are lobbyists, some wear the flag on their lapel. But behind them all, the same old system: power, protection, profit. The Mafia didn't die. It simply adapted to democracy. It learned that you can't shoot your way to power anymore. You have to buy it. You don't rule with fear. You rule with favors. And as long as money drives politics, the line between organized crime and organized government will always be dangerously thin. So next time you hear about a donation, remember, some politicians don't take money, they owe it.